right, and now on to our keynote speaker. To introduce our keynote speaker, we are very thankful for the support of Lockheed Martin. So to do the introduction is Eric Brown, Vice President, Space Mission Strategy and Advanced Capabilities at Lockheed Martin. Eric.
Throughout the history of spaceflight, it's really been a marriage of the national security and the civil community, where we see the value of our scientific exploration reflected in many various ways. And in fact, one of the things that drew me to Lockheed Martin originally was that holistic approach, the recognition that from a science and exploration perspective, we can capitalize on the things that we've needed to develop in our own national security interests. And in fact, yours truly, only a matter of a few months ago, spent most of his time in SCIFs and in the national security arena, looking at satellite communications and position navigation, timing, and other capabilities that are directly being employed for the future of space exploration. It's really, I think a number of you heard me speaking on space nuclear this morning, and that's one of those great marriages that has had to come up between the two communities. And so right now, it's my privilege to be able to introduce Colonel Eric Zarybnisky, Colonel Z, who has had various roles at the NRO since 2005, serving in distinction in a variety of capacities. Most recently, about a year and a half ago, took leadership over the Office of Space Launch, where he's looking at all of the NRO's requirements for the future of bringing its assets up on orbit. And I think what we'll see from him and what I'm excited to hear about is really how the NRO and he is driving innovation that is so crucial to the future from a national security perspective, but also how we can capitalize on that for all of our future scientific and exploration interests. Colonel Z.
Only fitting for an Eric to introduce an Eric. So thank you very much for that kind introduction, distinction in some ways. So first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Just the morning discussion has been fascinating. Topics I'm going to hit on that I didn't know I'd already be talking to folks in the audience about. So I'm excited to be here, excited to share with you a little bit about advanced technologies and really innovation in the NRO. Innovation is part of the DNA of the NRO. For 60 years, the NRO has been driven to do better things and to deliver for the needs of this nation. It's been a core tenet of the NRO to innovate. Today, we're building on that legacy of innovation to make the United States safer and stronger. Dr. Scalise sends his best regards, and he is driving the NRO, or Chris, as some folks know him. I just can't bring myself to call him Chris. He's challenging us to think differently about all aspects of our business, right? We've talked this morning about the differences in spacecraft. We also have to think differently about business processes and what we do on the ground. So innovation is all through the NRO and everything we're doing. We need to change our acquisition processes to deliver capability faster and on better timelines. But I think it was hit on earlier today, what's the why, right? It's important to start with the why. We deliver vital intelligence that can be only obtained from the vantage point of space. That's why the NRO existed, right? I know earlier there was a conversation about focus on what you're good at, focus on your lane in the road. That is what the NRO has been charged to do, and we're going to innovate to meet on that need. So how do we do that? We support warfighters, right? Real-time situational awareness of what's going on the battlefield, locations and intentions of our enemies. We provide exquisite collections for national decision makers so that they can get real-time insights with facts of what's going on around the world. And then finally, one that doesn't get talked a lot about, we do support civilian agencies. If there are natural disasters and many times the humanitarian crises that come with that, the NRO is there to support. We are pushing to deliver critical intelligence faster than we've ever done before. We're delivering the truth of what's going on around the globe, and we're using technology to drive the creation of knowledge, not just pixels. We're modernizing the architecture. If you paid attention to the West Coast launch manifest, there's a lot of NRO launches going on the West Coast. That new proliferated architecture was designed from the ground up to enable rapid retasking, in-theater access, data delivery to meet user needs, and reduce mean time to access. We expect to quadruple the number of satellites we have on orbit in the next decade. That's a huge change for an organization like the NRO. It's a catalyst. Another catalyst for innovation in the NRO is these smaller, lower price point systems. Rapid turn times means you can introduce that next technology into the next generation and not wait for many years or even decades to introduce new technologies. With the first launch of that proliferated architecture in May of 2024, the NRO is paving the way for new intelligence collections. We're evolving from dozens to hundreds of satellites. We will deliver data in seconds, not minutes and not hours. That is a huge change, and we have to innovate to meet that need. We launched some demonstration satellites to meet that architecture, understand what was going to go on. Those demonstration satellites are helping ensure a smooth transition as we learn how to orchestrate collection and reduce the operational burden of having so many satellites on orbit. We're using automation to help our operators be able to command and control larger architectures of satellites. We're also using machine learning and AI. Those are talked about earlier. With my academic background, I don't use those terms lightly. We are doing machine learning and AI in the NRO. We use it to fuse data. We use it to analyze telemetry that we have coming down from large architectures, and we're using it to convert data into information, what our customers need. We're training large language models. We're going to use system specifications and concept of operations so that our operators can interact in a different way, not just a PDF, right, that they have to look at on the screen, but something they can interact with to actually understand the system and be able to respond as needed. It's improving our training and our system integration. Finally, for our end customers, those intelligence analysts, we're using large language models to enable them to ask questions like, if I schedule this task, will it actually get scheduled? Or, I asked for this task, why didn't it happen? That gives them better transparency and better confidence in the NRO because they know what's going on. They can have an intuitive understanding of what's going on in the NRO architecture. If you're a data scientist, the NRO is an amazing place to work. We actually have active duty military, folks that wear a uniform, data scientists day in and day out proving out new concepts and new methodologies to take large unstructured data sets and convert them into information. They're driven by the mantra to deliver the right data to the right users at the right times. Again, seconds, not minutes and hours. AI and ML are the latest buzzwords, right? We hear all those, I've seen proposals, right? They get thrown around a lot. That's not the only place we need to innovate. Baseline processes and infrastructure are still important. How we schedule antennas, how we do cloud computing, agile software development, and yes, the other buzzword of the day, digital engineering, right? The NRO is looking to all of these capabilities to improve what we do day in and day out to deliver capabilities for the nation. It's not just about innovation, though, in how we do our business. It's also about how we respond to the changing nature of space. How we respond, and I think it was mentioned earlier, to our adversaries and current threats. Threats on orbit, threats in cyberspace, and threats on the ground. I remember a Sloan Management School book review a few years ago. I apologize, I don't remember the name of the book, but the conversation was about the difference between complicated problems and complex problems. The premise is that a complicated problem, it's hard, but with the right math and the right algorithms, I can solve a complicated problem. Complex problems, on the other hand, have uncertainties, they have human decision-making, and they have intuition. A lot of interrelated factors coming together that make it harder to solve. In fact, the rules and algorithms and ways we think about complicated problems don't really translate to complex problems. Space has always been complex. From the rocket equation to the transfer orbits, and I know some of you know this book, I went to BMW, right? I pulled out BMW and I could do the math, right? I could understand if I needed to get an object from one place to another, it probably was in here. Maybe you had to do a little bit, J2 transformations or something. I knew how to do the math, right? Computer tools today are amazing, help us propagate orbits, they help us optimize satellite designs. We can use physics and engineering to solve a lot of these problems. What about a complex problem? Space is becoming increasingly complex. Competitors in our space domain are developing capabilities and methods to put our intelligence collection mission at risk. We are developing systems to help our operators in that complex environment. Decision support tools and telemetry analysis tools that will help them understand what's going on in orbit and how they can react. Again, I think something that gets thrown around a lot, man in the loop, man on the loop, right? Trying to move so that our operators are not so burdened by what's going on. Of course, I'd be remiss in this audience if I didn't talk about the critical role of the commercial industry and the innovative success of the NRO. It's a great time to be in space. I think Google knows the only thing I read is space news articles, right? It just pushes me all the different space things that's going on. And it's awesome, right, to read all of the amazing capabilities that companies are bringing to bear to solve these problems. The challenge, and exactly what was brought up, I think, in the last panel, is how do we integrate all of these new technologies together to solve the mission need we have? We're looking to incentivize creativity for that next game-changing revolutionary technology for space-based reconnaissance, because again, that's our wheelhouse. How do we apply those technologies to space reconnaissance? To do that, we've got to think about new ways to engage with industry. How do we acquire capabilities faster and at a better value to the US taxpayer? Because at the end of the day, I'm spending taxpayer dollars. How do I do those two things? I was at the NRO CEO forum a couple months ago, and one of the questions of large language models came up. So how could I use a large language model to help write better requests for proposal? So I deliver a better product to industry so you know what I'm looking for. How do we use machine learning to look at reams and reams of financial data? Yeah, I know EVM, if you've gone to Defense Acquisition University, EVM is the answer. How do we do that so someone like me as a program manager isn't spending hours and hours looking at spreadsheets? It's those kind of innovations that maybe don't get talked about as much, but are critical to our industry. It's also about where we look for new ideas. Since 2021, the NRO has awarded 50 other transactions. For any of the contracting officers in the room, that's a different way to buy things, right? 35 of those went to non-traditional vendors. So we're looking for ways to engage with a broader set of the industry to deliver ideas. It encourages flexible prototyping, and in fact, this past year, we awarded our first production other transaction. We're looking for better ways to buy things to deliver those capabilities. Now, you mentioned I'm in the Office of Space Launch. We're going to talk about rockets a little bit. I've been charged by the director. It's not about launch. It's not about the rockets. It's about the satellites and the mission they're going to perform. So the directors challenged me to how do we get satellites to the right orbit at the right time so they can do their mission. Obviously, reusability, some of the different propellants, new launch sites, those are great things, right? We love having diversity in ways to get things to orbit, but I'll focus on two specific examples. Orbital transfer vehicles, tugs, kick stages, whatever you want to kind of call that realm of technologies are great. It can help one single launch enable satellites to go to many different orbits potentially. We also could use it if we have a satellite that's reaching an end of life due to fuel to continue that mission and then move it into a graveyard orbit or to deorbit it. Again, getting more mission out of those critical systems that we put into space. And secondly, multi-manifest capabilities, right? That's a lot of the conversation is how do we do multi-manifest? But one of the challenges is, what if one of the satellites doesn't get there in time, right? The standard answer has always been build a mass simulator. How much mission does a mass simulator do? None, right? So how do we deliver capabilities so that I can put those satellites that are ready to go to orbit, when they're ready to go, where they need to be? And then that next satellite that maybe had a technical challenge or maybe needed to prove out a critical part of their system, we can get them there as well. So multi-manifest capabilities, but enabling us to get capabilities on orbit when they're ready. And I got to say, from my perspective, that's not making every satellite the same. Each of my customers has a slightly different mission set they're going after. So to tell them they have to all look the same and have to have the same modal dynamics doesn't allow them to do their mission. I'll give you 3 concrete examples of kind of how the NRO is doing innovation. The first one is the Director's Innovation Initiative. It's a 25-year program that's been going out and looking for high payoff breakthroughs for the NRO mission. We're looking at machine learning and AI, as I talked about earlier, but specific to NRO programs. And then, of course, the director would not want me to leave here without saying quantum. Almost everywhere he goes at this point, he talks about quantum, and that's a big one of the focuses in his director's innovation initiative. The second one, and this actually came up in a conversation earlier this morning, is the designation of the NRO as a national laboratory. Now, you might wonder, why does that really matter? So it's called the Space Reconnaissance Laboratory. The key point in the conversation I had earlier today is it opens up new ways for the NRO to engage with industry, such as CRADAs, Cooperative Research and Development Agreements. Had to look that one up. That's huge, right? It allows non-traditional vendors that are coming into the space arena to engage with the NRO and be able to present technologies that help solve our mission. We're using it to do AI to inform material development for in-space applications, advanced mathematics for precision large language models to go through our data, and new algorithms for object track, change detection, and identification of anomalous activities, somewhat unique missions to the NRO. And the last one I'll highlight is the Enterprise Technical Innovation Corps. This is a group of very smart individuals that we bring together that have a broad set of backgrounds. In fact, I was having a conversation with one of the individuals about 2 weeks ago, climate scientist. Why does the NRO have a climate scientist, right? We bring folks together and let them do what they do best. Question, probe, and make us better, right? Their whole charge is to question how we're doing things and drive the NRO forward. Give us that fresh perspective, because I got a few gray hairs. I've been around this business a while. It's great to hear from them. But I'd be remiss, obviously, having followed the award ceremony, if I didn't highlight the people, right? It's the people of the NRO that make this innovation happen and our engagement with the commercial industry. Some of you may or may not know the NRO is an interesting organization made up of military folks, DoD civilians, intelligence community civilians, and support contractors. It's a great place for different cultures and different ideas to come together to get the best result from all of those organizations. It really does drive us to be better. Back to the conversation about interns, we've built an intern pipeline, including from civilian institutions and military academies. So for anybody out there that's a student, if you're interested, go check out the NRO website. There is an intern program. I actually had 3 interns in the Office of Space Launch last year. One was doing contracts. I had 2 technical. They've made a lasting impact on the NRO mission that it will go on for decades. Let me highlight just one intern for you. So I'm an Air Force Academy grad, so a little biased to who to highlight. Jabari Bowen is an alumni of the Academy. He was a 2-time intern at the NRO, and this past February he won the Student Leadership Undergraduate Level Award at the 2024 Black Engineers of the Year STEM Conference. Right? That's the level of folks we have coming through our intern program so that we can build that next generation. We have to have their ideas. We have to have them in our organizations. I'll close with the fact that the innovation is part of the NRO DNA. We need to look at the entire NRO portfolio and our processes to do things better, to deliver the capabilities this nation needs. Again, thank you for the invitation. I'm always excited to come back to Huntsville, and with that, there may be questions. And I'm going to get out from behind the podium because this is not my natural habitat. Thank you, sir.
Hey, Eric, you asked me earlier to ask a good question, so I'll try to live up to that. You mentioned private industry, and I wanted to ask about a specific sector of it, like Earth imaging, something. I think Black Sky is a company that is one of those. How do we ensure that the NRO can best use those Earth imaging private industry companies while also ensuring that our adversaries do not get that information or can't utilize it?
I'll focus really on the first part of your question. We actually have an entire commercial systems program office that is charged to do exactly that. So they are a direct report to the director of the NRO, and they go out and look at commercial solutions, exactly like you've highlighted from some of those exact companies, and how we fold that in, right? So there's exquisite systems. How do we allow the exquisite systems to do what they need to do and only they can do, and leverage the commercial marketplace to deliver capabilities that the commercial marketplace can? Second part of that I'd really leave for them, but yeah, there's an entire office focused on bringing those capabilities to bear.
You mentioned in your talk about interest in OTVs and multi-manifesting and so on. Are there other space transportation capabilities you're looking to see more from industry in terms of responsiveness, performance, or so on? And if so, how would the NRO try and incentivize the development of that?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing is, so I actually released a BAA, broad area announcement about 6 months ago, I think, and maybe off on the timeline, something like that. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to look for ways to engage with industry to understand where you're headed and how do we leverage that for our specific requirements. The second thing I would say is the NRO is a little bit unique in that I don't typically buy my own rockets. Right? I buy them on a Space Force contract out in LA. So short of your answer, the question is you may not see me engage. You may see the Space Force engage, right? But don't worry, I'm very close behind them, right? So how do we work together? And some of that's also with NASA as well, right? I talk to the NASA Launch Service Program director 2 or 3 times a week, right? So you may not see the NRO, you may not see my face directly or my folks, but rest assured, the NRO Space Force NASA partnership is alive and well and very strong. We meet very regularly on launch manifests, because everybody likes to talk about the launch manifest, but more so about where are we headed, right? And what do I need in 10 years and what do they need in 10 years? Specific answer, though, is we're going to continue, the NRO will continue to do BAAs. Thank you.
We got one here.
Check. Thank you for coming and speaking to us. Really appreciate your expertise and your energy. Thank you, Colonel Z. You mentioned satellite end-of-life, graveyards, and deorbits, which makes me think of satellite servicing. Where does NRO stand on that?
I'll dodge that a little bit. I think, well, it's an interesting question for me because I'll respond to whatever my customers need, right? So I have satellite customers that will have asked me that question, right? And we are working to deliver for them. There are some satellite customers who have said, I have no need for that, right? So I think it's really about the specific programs and what they're trying to do. When they come to me and say, this is what I need and here's where I need it, that's my job to get it for them, right? I am that service provider to make what is still rocket science look easy to them, but it's really about what my customers need, and those program offices, how I support them. And I'd say very short, there's not a consistent answer. And I'll be around both this afternoon and tomorrow. If there are any follow-up questions, happy to chat. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much.